Hold on to your hats. It's time for TWiP Pro Image Critique number 4. This is TWiP. All right, here we are for yet another TWiP Pro Image Critique session. I'm here with my friend, Mr. Troy Miller. Hey, Troy, what's going on, man?
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing good. I'm excited. There's some pretty good images that were submitted to the photo critique channel in TWiP Pro, and I have my thoughts. I have some notes that I made, and I know you and I have not talked about these photos.
No, we haven't. We talked about everything else.
We talked about everything else. Yeah, we talked about coffee mugs, Mountain Dew, and all that stuff. We have not talked about the images, which is good because we go in fresh with fresh eyes. And hopefully give some actionable substantive critique. So with that, let's dive in. So I'm going to screen share my the TWiP Pro community first, and we'll start with the first image in here. All right, there we go. Okay, so this first image is from Mark Harris. Let's bring that up like that. All right. So yeah, so let's step through this. I'm gonna let you go first.
Okay.
And we'll just, we'll just do it that way. I think that's probably the best way to do it. I'll let you go first, and then I'll give my comments, kind of like we did at the IEPPV, right? So the IEPPV critique we did the other day. So we'll do a similar kind of flow there. So you go first.
Well, first of all, the impact is really great. I love the stylizing of this, the crisscross of the chair, her legs, her arms. I love that whole pose. A couple things just really drew my eye right away, and that is the highlights on her legs are a little bit bright. Her left hand, how it's kind of wrapped around her toe, that finger kind of has a claw nature to it. A little bit more delicate hands would be really nice. And then I just thought that it bringing the overall tone down and then bringing the highlight up on her face so that our focus was more on her face and less on the rest of her body. Kind of let that go more like a noir kind of thing, just really drop kind of dark.
Yeah. Yep. I agree with all that. I would add to that, my first look at this image, I know Mark was going for dark. I think just kind of dark and moody and contrasty, and I love that. I think he definitely executed that. What I'd want to see more is a little bit more of her face in there, because my eyes, like you were saying, my eyes are drawn to the highlights on the legs and to that side of her face, and then the other side of her face is dropping abruptly into shadow, and I don't have a highlight or catch light in her eye. So even if he were to put one in there, just a little glint in there later, just to draw some attention to the eye there. I know I see this as kind of a sexy sort of image with the jacket open and kind of exposing a little bit there. I would have liked to have emphasized that, not show more, but just emphasize the fact that, yeah, this person is sitting there kind of, smokily, seductively, for lack of better words, because I'm not instantly, it doesn't jump out at me that's what it is. I have to, like, as an image critique, I have to look at it a little bit close and say, oh, okay, she's probably only got that jacket on, right? So, just something, I don't know what else you could do to show without showing more, because I'm not saying show more skin or anything. I'm just saying that maybe the pose needs be a little bit different, and maybe a little bit more fill on this side over here.
What would be really good for this image, and you just sort of highlighted it for me, was on her left side, camera right, if the light was over there and short light this, so the short side of her face was lit with that light instead of the broad side of her face, let that hair fall down on her right side, cover that ear a little bit, the mood of this would change dramatically. It would become much more deeper, darker, mysterious. I think that could really be something worth trying, because right now it's broad lit, and it makes that right side of her face so large. Yeah.
The pose, I love the pose. I love the the tension on her toe here. I love that her arm is kind of extended and she's grabbing here. I know you said that's a little claw-ish there, but I don't know. I don't know. Maybe this finger could be right next to these other fingers, but I'm splitting hairs there, literally. But yeah, I like the pose a lot, and I like the fact that he put her on some sort of reflective surface there too. So Yeah, very good. Thanks, Mark, for submitting this. This is good. Shall we move on to the next one?
Sure.
All right. Here's the next image in the series. This is from our friend Tim Engel. He's titled this Lake. Oh, you know what? I'm sorry. Duh. Before we go on to that one, you did before and afters of these images.
I wasn't going to say anything. You know, you have your
before and afters. So let me stop the screen share.
You have your flow.
All right. Yeah, it's this Mountain Dew I'm on right now. So.
Oh, good for you.
Okay. So what Troy Miller did was, let me bring up Troy Miller. Troy, you did a bunch of before and afters of these showing your thoughts. So sorry about that. I'm just
no, it's fine.
On a different planet right now. All right. So this is what you were talking about.
Yeah, the left is the after, the right is the before. And all I did is just do some toning, tone down the highlights, tone down the background a little bit, and just really kind of bring that light on her face so her face really pops. So when you look at the image, the first thing you do is you go to her face and then you kind of follow the flow of her legs and then back to her face again. Just has a better feel for me.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I like it. And I like the contrast is increased on your version of
and
it.
I don't mind that her left eye is buried. I don't mind that at all. I mean, that's just preference. I kind of like that mystery. It's a very split lighting situation and it's very dramatic. And I think it's intentional for me. I like it. I mean, if I was going to do a print of this, I maybe would have a hint of her eyes in there, but I don't even need a catch light. I dig the whole dark. And I think that they may have been listening to our last few critiques because we kept converting everything to black and white, right? So
yeah. Well, that's what we say, right? So if color's not adding to the image, see what it looks like without it.
Right. Yeah.
It's so, often the image is much better without color distracting from the scene. Like, for example, if this, who knows what the colors in the scene were, but if there was like a plaid pattern on that thing she's sitting on, or that jacket was kind of like green or something, it would distract us from the pose and her stare and all that.
It would.
Yep. It would definitely do that.
It would. No, I love that image. That's great.
Cool. All right. Let's move on to the next one. Let's see. All right. Who's this one from? This is from Craig, right?
Yeah, that's Craig's.
Yeah. All right. Let's go through this one. So on this side is the original. I think these are lower resolution here.
Yeah. So
I'm not going to blow them up, but here we go. So there's a left side. I'm going to start on this one. So
do it.
So the left side is the original image. The right side is Troy's edit. So without looking at Troy's edit, my first thought is I love this concept. I know what he's going for. The whole idea of censorship in movies and how do you enjoy a movie when it's censored, So I love that. He did a really good job at this. The distracting elements in here, I think I only see like really one distracting element for me, and which again, we go back to that whole, if it's not adding to the image, why is it there? And what am I talking about, right? The clothes on the chair. Next to her, right? So I'm thinking about it. I'm like, what are those there for? Is she waiting for somebody that went up to go get us a drink? Or and so my brain is spinning off into a different direction when if those weren't there, that was just another blank seat. She would clearly be the only topic of this image, and boom, we've got it. I like the highlights on her hair with the air or with the light from the projector or the light source back there glinting off of the top of her head. I like the pose. I like her look. Everything is great. So only thing that kind of draws me away is that pile of clothes on the left. So what do you think?
I agree. I totally agree. I just made a couple slight adjustments. I cropped it because I felt the left side of the image had too much negative space. I do love the story that's going on here, though. I want to say that right off the bat. I know Craig has some very creative visions and very good at photographing them. I did feel, though, that the projector being stacked right above her head was distracting to me. So by moving it to the left, I'm no longer staring at the projector as opposed to her. The projector is offset, gives me a nice little triangular balance in there. And so I feel like I see her first and more than the projector in the back. The clothes, I totally agree. What I would love to see in here is, and I couldn't do it in time for, with my limited Photoshop skills, was
Yeah,
to put
right,
a
right.
sign in the back that kind of disappeared that said, no talking, or like on the seats it said reserved or something just really to enhance this idea of censorship and, putting up the sign, so to speak.
Yeah.
But I dig it. I think it's awesome.
Yeah, no, he did a great job. This is cool. I've never seen. I've seen a lot of Craig's work, but I haven't seen any sort of editorial, illustrative sort of work like this from him. So this is refreshing to see him doing all kinds of cool stuff like this.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. This is great.
Yep. All right, so let's go into this next one. Here we go. This is from Kyle, right?
Yeah.
All right, I'll let you go first.
So Kyle said that this, where is that at? I was going to find it. He describes what this is, which I think is really cool.
Oh, I can go right
Every
now.
Memorial Day, people remember lost loved ones by releasing lanterns from Ala Mona Beach, if I said that right. It's
Hmm.
become one of the largest tourist events in Honolulu, attracting about 50,000 people. So that's just what a cool story that is. That's just such a great story.
Yeah.
All I did was crop it and bring it in a little bit tighter, a little bit more focus on that floating candle. I left in the lights in the back because I know that those are probably other lanterns, other people. So I think that's really important. And I took out, if you look in the left image, there's like a green highlight, like top center
Right
right
there.
there. I just took that out. I just felt that was a little bit distracting.
Hmm. Nice.
Other than that, and I think I darkened it. I may have darkened the shadows a little bit, given it a little bit more punch.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
great image, good shot, good use of depth of field, good use of composition.
I think this image is strong in both representations. Um, Aside from this thing that you took out, right? So I would have taken that out too. I let on the left side on Kyle's original edit. Um, I tend to like things that have space to move into the frame. So he's cropped this so that these, not that they're actually moving in the frame, but there's space on the right side so that there's a sense of movement from the left to the right a little bit. So I tend to like that a little more. But then on the other hand, looking at your crop, it's a completely different interpretation of the same image. Now we're front and center. We're still using the rule of thirds because we have this floating candle in the back here, which is lending balance to the one in the front. So I don't know. I dig both of them. I think they're both great for different usages, right? So this one on the left could be good for, I don't know. I mean, you could. This is magazine. I mean, this could have a headline and some copy
Yeah.
down the side or whatever. This one I can see printed large
Right.
in a frame. So yeah, that's the magic of photography, right? There's
Oh,
no
right.
one right way to go through these. But the
Well,
colors, I love them. Did you say you pump the colors up a little bit, the saturation a little bit on yours?
no, all I did is bring the blacks down in Lightroom. So even though I worked off the JPEG, all you have to do is bring the blacks down and then
Yeah.
increase the saturation.
Okay. Okay.
Before you close that one, just a point of leading line, not leading lines, but space for things to move into. I saw the portrait on the lantern, and that's why I put more space to the left, so it looks like they're looking into that space, as
Oh,
opposed to the lantern moving to the right into that space. I saw the people, so it's a visual interpretation, right? How we see that thing in front of us.
right, right. And I'm looking at the geometric objects in the frame. You're looking at the actual humans in there.
Yeah.
Again, you're smarter than I am. So
No, I I photograph people. I see people everywhere. I see
uh,
people in everything.
yeah, yeah, cool. You have a sixth sense, right? So,
Well, I love landscape photography, and that's sort of my hobby. But I had a good friend of mine who would look at my work and goes, all of your shots have people in them. And I'm like, what do you mean? He says, well, you only focus a third of the way into the scene. The background is soft, the foreground is soft, and the middle ground is sharp, because that's not landscape. That's a portrait. I'm like, you're right. Because I see people and everything.
sometimes it takes a third person, a third party to tell us what
Yes.
we already knew it, right?
Yes.
All right, so let's clear this out and let's see. Let's go back into photo critique. Um, did I skip? Oh yeah, I skipped one. So
Yeah, you
We
skipped Tim's.
we didn't do Tim's yet. Let's do Tim's.
Yeah, I love that.
All right. And you did do a before and after of this one as
I
well,
did.
right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So this is what Tim submitted, and let's go into your before and after. Mr. Troy Miller. Here we go. Okay. All right. I'll let you go first. Go for it.
So I love both versions of this, and I didn't do this because I felt that the image needed to be improved. I think that it's great the way that it is. It feels very statuesque. I love the lighting. I felt, well, let's play with it a little bit. Let's bring that background down. Let's bring in the focus on her face. I did a radial gradient around her eye to bring down the background a little bit more, so it really focused on her face. That was my real intention. This everything about this image I just completely love. I would just suggest that when you're doing profiles like this, to either completely hide the right eye or turn the body into the camera a little bit more so we can actually see the mask of the face on the right hand side and a place for the eye to live. This is a little bit odd where you got these eyelashes kind of growing out of the bridge of her nose. Easily removed though. That way it's a true profile. But dig this image.
Yeah, I dig this image. Tim is a master at shooting, these kinds of photos, and this is really good. I didn't have much to add to this one. I agree with what you say about the eyelash. And yeah, you're right. It does stand in both crops. It stands right, just like Kyle's image. It just depends on how you want to interpret it. I like the stillness of the water in this one.
I
One
do
thing
wish.
I'm sorry.
Oh, I do wish, however, that her head was isolated against the water
Instead of instead of the horizon going through it.
Yeah, instead of it going through her head.
Yeah. Would you get a little higher to aim?
Yeah, or lower? You could do the same thing, shoot across the water, but then who knows how close you were to the water already?
Right. My guess is Tim was in the water. Tim, if you're watching this, either now or in the future, comment and let us know were you in the water when you shot this. The only distracting thing in here that I see is right here. Like, I think I probably would have cloned that out, little area, because I'm not sure what. I'm sure that was just the water, because she was moving, because she's a living thing in the water. So I probably would have just cloned that out. But yeah, this is fantastic. I love the processing of this. I love his interpretation of the black and white version.
Yep.
But even in the cropped version here, this is yours on the left, right? So
correct.
In the cropped version, it's even more evident that this is the mountains or the hills in the background are going through her head. So now that you say that, now I see that. Right?
Yeah, and not only going through her head, but that highlight and shadow line is directly at her eye level.
Right.
Which is just sort of interrupting the flow of the image.
Yeah, just right there, right? Yeah. Yeah, interesting. But I wonder if he had shot this from a higher angle where he had more of the lake in the background, would and eliminated, or at least put the mountains at the top, would we have lost our sense of place with this? Or does it matter?
I don't think it matters. I think, well, maybe it matters to the maker, the viewer. We don't know what his storytelling was or where he was.
Right.
But I would think that if this is a model shoot, we're shooting for the model, or we're shooting something where we're highlighting the model, we want to honor the model as much as possible. The figure, the art, the piece in the middle, and the background is just there to accent those kind of things. So isolating her against the sky or against the water would definitely have her stand out even more. Yeah.
Great work, Tim, as usual.
And I take a ladder with me when I do a lot of engagement shoots or weddings, because a lot of times the skyline is not pretty. So I can stand on a ladder, shoot down into the grass, and then it's just the bride or the bride and groom or the wedding party, and there's not a mess in the background to distract.
Do you have a favorite lens that you use for those kinds of shoots?
My 8514 Sigma art series is probably one of my favorite pieces of glass right now. It's the first one on my camera in the beginning of the day, and it stays on until I need another lens. I change lenses all day long, but that is my favorite lens.
That's your bread and butter. That's your bread and butter lens.
Yeah, I love that lens. It weighs a ton. Weighs more than my camera.
Yeah, you're in a Canon DSLR, right?
I am not. I am on a Nikon D5
Oh,
and
you're
a
a Nikon.
D850.
That's the same thing. I bet you that's the same thing Tim shot this image with.
Um, it doesn't say, but I'm curious. Yeah, Mark shot his with a D850.
Yeah. Well, I know Tim's a Nikon shooter,
Oh,
so
good.
I'm guessing you could probably tell what, since you're a Nikon shooter, you could probably tell what lens he shot this with. So,
It's shallow, whatever it is. I mean, it could be. I'm guessing it's longer than a 50 because it doesn't look like we're getting any barrel distortion or anything in there. So I'm guessing 185 somewhere in there.
yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Very cool. All right. So let's move on. So we've gone through these. I thought there was another. Oh, let's go back to the image photo critique here. Who is this guy?
Well, to be fair, here I am critiquing everybody else's work, and I thought, well, I'll throw in, one of my subjects. I'm not a great compositor, so I thought, I would give you a chance to critique one of my images.
You're trying to redeem yourself on skies? Is that what we're talking?
Well, I am always and forever trying to redeem myself on skies, but I do look at light direction now. I pay a lot more attention. I don't know how much better I've gotten at it, but
Oh, I love it. I love it. I feel bad because I didn't put an image in here. I feel like it should be a quid pro quo. All right. This is hard critiquing someone's image when they're standing in front of you, man. It's like
don't be gentle. It's all right. I've been critiqued by Renee. It's fine. I'm
yeah.
good.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That's right. She's not known for being gentle in her critiques. So
No, but she's amazing. So I appreciate it.
she is. Okay, so this shot, the first thing I think of when I see this shot, I think of the movie. God, what was that movie with Jennifer Lopez in it? And Vincent D'Onofrio, way back when. It was like this really, every scene was almost an art piece. I forget what it was. Folks in the comments, if you can remind me, that'd be great.
I can't help you. I can't remember anything that isn't sci-fi based.
This was sci-fi. This was sci-fi fantasy.
Oh no!
So the premise of the film was she was going into like they had developed this technology to get into each other's dreams and alter their consciousness, or alter their thinking through the dreams. So she had gone into this little boy's dream, and he had all kinds of monsters and stuff in there. And one of the scenes looked kind of like this. That's where
it's not Inception, right?
No, it wasn't. No, this was like a decade or two before Inception.
Oh. Now I want to know. So now I want to watch that. That's going to be
I will
my
find
movie
it
for
and
tonight.
post it. I will find it and post it. It's actually really well done. If you watch it, you'll see with photographer eyes like you'll see that every scene was meticulously crafted to be beautiful. It's almost like a composite. Every scene is like a fantasy composite. It's crazy.
I like that. I love movies like that. The King's Speech is like that. The movie The King's Speech. If you've never watched The King's Speech, put it on, turn the audio off, and just watch it. It's amazing composition, amazing use of light and space, and he breaks so many compositional rules that work. It's very inspirational. It's really cool.
Okay, I'll put that on my watch list. Very cool. Okay, so my first thoughts about this image are it's beautiful. I love it. I'm looking at I like the flowing of the fabric behind her. So this is a composite, right? So the images at the bottom were the source of the composite for the final image on top, or
yeah.
Okay.
So all 6 of those images. So the original top left icon, that was one shot, and then the clouds were additional add-ons, and then additional materials that were masked out from the wind blowing that. I just added those because I didn't have a 50-foot cape. So I was trying to make the material look bigger.
Yeah. And I think it worked. Excuse me. Yeah, no, it's great. I love that you added the sun in there. And if I hadn't known that you had added that in there, I would have assumed that was there. So which was a true sign of compositing, right? If no one knows that you did it, you succeeded. I always say it's like burglary, right? So,
yeah.
or stealth, whatever stealth thing you want to put in there. If people know that you were there, or plastic surgery is a good example, right? If people know you had work done, you fail. your plastic surgery on this image is great. So I had no idea that was there. I love what I would have done when I look at the first image. And granted, our monitors are different.
Sure, sure.
And our eyes are different, obviously. But looking at the image, the first thing that struck me is it seems like I would, in a shot like this, I would have wanted more contrast and more saturation. Like I really wanted to pop. I want to be there, right? I wanted to pop out. And I'm thinking again, back to that movie. When you see that movie, you're going to be like, oh, I see what he's talking about. Right. So I wanted to pop a little bit more. I love the clouds in there. I think you did a great job with clouds. So bravo. There you go.
Well, we haven't heard Renee. I mean, let me know. On a scale of 1 to 10, am I getting better?
Well, I'm going to tag Renee in this image in TWiP Pro.
That's fine.
We'll ask her for her thoughts. She posted it, so we'll ask her.
Yeah, of course.
The sand dunes in the foreground. I feel like I don't know. I feel like I want more space in here. Maybe around, maybe a little bit more sky and a little bit more foreground in there, so I have a better sense of the size of those dunes. Right? Because I know she's on a dune, but sand dunes are grandiose and huge, and they go on forever.
Not this one. No, seriously.
This one is like Pismo Beach, and there was a Starbucks right to the left there.
If you've ever driven from like Barstow to Vegas, there's like this vacant area of nothingness, and you look over to the left, and there's an exit, and it goes like 100 feet, and it ends in the sand. And there's one sand dune that's like 10 feet high. There's trash all around it. There's tires everywhere. And we pull over, and this is my wife. I told her, I go, hey, what do you think about getting on that sand dune? And that's it. That's awesome.
It's
tiny.
That's the magic of photography, that you could do that. Or you could, it's the magic of camera angles. Right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And having a built-in muse, right?
And it was windy. And I thought it would be clever to tell my friend, hey, why don't you throw sand so it flies between me and the model, between me and Margie, and that'll be really cool, right? I won't have to add that later. I have video. The sand literally flew right at me and filled my camera with sand. Yeah.
So this was an expensive shot then, wasn't it?
Well, the camera is sealed, so it took me a little while to get it cleaned off, but I saved it. There was no sand in the camera. So
good. No, I like this. This is a good example of what I like to call digital alchemy, right? So taking a bunch of disparate images and using your magic that no one knows and coming out with something that's greater than the sum of its parts. This is what compositing is all about. And this is why I love compositing more than, most other kinds of digital image manipulation, because it's like you can, like you're saying, you're driving along the road and you see something and you can capture an ingredient for something that you're gonna create later, instead of saying, okay, I need to find the perfect light, the perfect image, the perfect this, the perfect that, and then I'll snap the picture and do some post-processing, and that's it. It's interesting because on TWiP a lot we have the conversation about digital manipulation and and where the line is. Usually it nets out that there are no lines except around the hallowed ground of photojournalism, right? So that's the only dry spot. Everything else is wet, right?
Right. Well, it's all about telling a story, and I think in the context of critiquing these images, the same tools that you would use to move the projector light in Craig's image to give you better composition is the same tools that I used in here to maybe add a little bit more material to tell the story better. For me, the shooting in camera and then the creative process after the post-processing, it's all part of one monster creative process. Even when I'm shooting a wedding, I'll look at things and I'll say, well, there's this completely blank and vacant sky. I have to put something in there to create some depth later if this is an image that my couples choose, right? They may not know that I've done that because they don't see the sky like I do, but it's all the same tools that we use. So whether we're doing extreme compositing or we're tweaking an image just for our clients, it's all the same set of tools. One's just farther left or right or whatever.
Yeah. It's interesting. I wanna continue that a little bit, but I wanna let's there was another image that recently came in that I
Yeah,
want to
just
talk
popped
about.
in from Steve.
Yeah, so let's see. Yeah, here we go.
A wedding image in my wheelhouse. I love wedding
Look at
images.
that. I'm gonna let you go to town on this one, so go for it.
Yeah, no, I love this. This one popped in at the last minute, and Frederick says, "Well, do you want to do a little, before and after on this?" And I said, "No, I love it. I think that Steve, you did a fantastic job of putting the bride and groom in a clean space in between those trees and the sky. I love that. You've got a off-camera flash that you're filling them. I love that. That's really great. If we were going to really just push this image a little bit further, I would say that the bride and groom are a little bit hot. Bring her dress down a tad. If you're in Lightroom and you have the raw file, I would just bring down the whites and the highlights. Maybe brush that in on her. That'll really bring some detail into her dress, and that's fantastic. And then maybe just remove that sign in the back far right corner, that little square sign. That's just a little bit distracting, or crop it out. I love the tree there though,
Hmm.
but well done. And wedding days are tough because you're doing it in the moment. You have a couple minutes, so to find the spot, to put them there, to light them, take the shot. That takes a lot of time. I
Yeah.
might I might suggest with the pose a little bit more delicate pose where his hands are down, just touching her hands. You can even take the bouquet out. I take the bouquet out a lot.
Really? Oh.
Yeah, I take it out all the time. The brides want to see the bouquet. I get that, and we do lots of shots with the bouquet, but it's hard for them to be close. It's hard for them to be snuggling and intimate and be together, when she's holding a bouquet.
Yeah.
So I either take it out or I have her hold it in her left hand, and then they can hold hands right there. Or she can bring her hands up and just on his lapel or just on his fingertips, like on his face, and give him a kiss, like pull him in, give him a kiss, those kind of things. And that to me feels much more natural. And it's sort of a romantic way of taking that image.
Yeah. Love it. Love it.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
like
I
this.
agree with you, and I would add that I don't have a whole lot to add to this to the critique on this image. The only thing that I would throw in is, and I think you highlighted this, is that over on this side here, this sign is bright.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's drawing me into it. In fact, I don't, I would definitely get rid of that. I'm on the fence over if these light poles are adding to it at all, and like I'm thinking from the standpoint of if the bride and groom love this image, which I'm sure they did and do, and they decided, you know what, I want to print this big, we
Mhm.
want to we want to print of this hanging on the wall. All these things are going to reveal themselves, right? So
Right. And to be fair, if I had a client come to me and say, "Well, I'm going to put this in my album," I would go through and I would remove those light poles.
mhm.
I would remove that sign. On the left-hand side of the road under the tree, there's a white stick. I would
This
remove
guy right
that.
here. Yeah.
And then I would get rid of the little red humans in the back. Looks like maybe they're on a golf course or something on across
Oh, back
across the
here.
lake.
Yeah. Oh, these
Yeah,
guys.
I would get
Yeah,
rid
I
of
didn't see
those.
those guys. Yeah.
Very
Yeah.
simple edits, but that's sort of that's like a final image. That's an image that would go in their album. I just give it a little bit of tweak, not too much,
Hmm.
just to
Yeah.
clean it up.
Now, Tori, I want to ask a question. Like when you're doing an image like this, or when you're doing images, and I'm gonna stop the screen share real quick. And thanks a lot, Steve, for
Yeah.
submitting this. Let me make sure there are no other images in here. No, looks we're good. Okay, cool. Um, let's stop the screen share for a second. Okay, so when you're walking through images for one of your brides, like, how do you are there two different modes or MOs that you have, or multiple MOs where you say, okay, this one I'm going to spend more time on than this one because this one is only going to be it's only going to be in the album, whereas this one may be framed and printed, and I want it to be more saleable. Or do you do the same sort of treatment on each one?
Each image has its own personality, we'll call it. So
Hmm.
as I'm going through the images, I see the image the way that I wanted to create it. So for example, like the images from Steve, if I was to shoot that image there, would see the clouds, I would see the contrast, I might see the sign, I want to take it out later. So when I look at each image when it comes back from my edit, it reminds me of what I was trying to do and the story I was trying to tell at that moment. And then I will tweak the image slightly to get it closer to that image, because we know that the camera, the capture is only half the process. So whether I want to go sepia or I want to go black and white, or I go what I call special, which are basically just all over the board with tweaks.
Yeah. So the second part of the question is, and this is to continue the thought that we had earlier when we were talking about compositing. Is like there's multiple schools of thought, but two main schools of thought when it comes to compositing. We kind of touched on it in terms of photojournalism being the hallowed ground, everything else is fair game. But where is the morality or the what's the word I'm looking for? What are best practices when doing not even just wedding photography, whether it be portrait photography or model photography from Tim or whatever? Where's the line where you say, I want the viewer of this image to think that I did the whole thing and I'm just that good that it came out like that, versus disclosing that, yeah, I did a lot of work on this image? Or does it even matter? Like in the end, if the viewer is looking at an image and it looks great and they like it and it's pleasing, does it matter that you took out light poles or that you fixed wrinkles or that you did whatever to it?
No, I don't think it matters. I don't. I think not for what I'm doing. I'm not doing editorial and I'm not doing photojournalism. I am there to tell a story about a couple, about being in love, about their day, about their party, and they don't see the backgrounds. They don't see the lack of clouds in the sky all the time. They trust me to create a vision that is basically my art that they want to be in. And so I feel like I have a wide latitude for creativity. I don't go over the top, meaning I'm not going to, add or move major components that they would obviously look at and go, well, hey, where's that steeple? Or, why did you put a completely different, landscape in here? But I do enhance it. And what I have found through my image competition images that I would really go far with, my couples love it. They're like, oh, that is so cool that's our image and you did that work. So because it's art, it does work. It does work. So I think that it depends on your job, what you do, what you're contracted to do. But for me, it's part of my creativity. Definitely.
Yeah. And that's what, in the end, that's what your clients are paying you for, right? Is your creativity.
Yeah. And they look at my albums, they look at my website, they look at my work, and they see my style. And so I'm very blessed to have the latitude to create that style for my couples. And so I don't see that there's anything wrong with me tweaking and tuning. You did mention things like wrinkles and stuff like that. A lot of times lighting can enhance what we'll call our character in our face. And I don't ever take them out. I reduce them. I might soften them. I might bring them to a level that is more appropriate. So if I have somebody outside in direct light, and that's really going to enhance, say, a blemish or a thing, I might soften it because that's them. I'm not going to take that. I don't want to take that out. But that's different if you're shooting for fashion, or if you're, whatever style you're shooting for, you may take all that out.
Yeah, that's always been like the slippery slope for me, because it's, on the one hand, you could make someone look 20, 30 years younger if you wanted to. And if you're good, no one will even know that you did it. They just look fantastic. And you show them the image, you show the client the image, and they're like, wow, look at me. That's the best picture anyone has ever taken of me. That is fantastic, right? But then you show it to another, you do the same work on another image, and you show it to that person, and they're like, that's not me.
Right.
I worked for those wrinkles,
Right.
Why'd you take those away from me? I'm 50, I'm 60, and I'm happy to be there.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So my philosophy is I look at the lighting that I put them in, and if the lighting I put them in enhanced those wrinkles or those folds or that blemish or whatever it is, then I might reduce it to what would be, say, softer lighting, we'll call it.
Hmm.
Reduce bags under the eyes, little things like that. I soften those, but only to a natural point.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because we have this conversation. It's all like, we high moral authority and all this stuff. And then you look on Instagram and these people are doing selfies of themselves and then completely distorting themselves into a caricature of the true them, right? You're like,
Right.
wait a minute, I know you. You're that's not you. Right? Your skin doesn't look like that. You're not that weight, you're, you're not that tall, so it's interesting where things are going because we're talking about this professional photography and the ethics and integrity when it comes to retouching and all that, for a certain demographic, maybe, and then the demographic that is marinating and in the incubator right now that's coming up may have completely different ideas of what is acceptable. So,
Right. Right.
right. And it's the photographer's job to ride that wave.
Yeah, and social media does change what is acceptable. I do know that my brides are much more self-aware in front of the camera because
Hmm.
they've taken selfies of themselves. They
Right.
understand. And some might say, well, that's a distraction, or that's they're not trusting me, or they think they know more. And in reality, that's amazing because they actually have an appreciation for the image I'm capturing of them.
Yeah.
So when I walk in and go, hey, let me fix that little hair right there, they're like, oh, thank you.
Hmm.
Or, let me have a little hair in the front of your shoulders. Or let's push all that hair to the back. They're like, oh, great. I love that. Because they're kind of visualizing, maybe as a selfie, right? Like what I look like. And
Yeah.
they can play to the camera better. And it helps me create that image specific to my discipline.
Sure, sure, and that's interesting that you say that because that talent of being self-aware in front of the camera and knowing what your best side is and knowing how to pose and knowing what is going to come out if you what the final image is going to come out like if you do a certain thing or you
Sure.
should arch your back a little bit. Knowing those things, a lot of people know that because of the whole selfie wave, right? Where
Right.
previously those talents had been restricted to professional models. That was a professional model trait to know how you look in front of the camera to deliver that image to the photographer so that, he would, it was a collaboration between the photographer. It still is a collaboration between the photographer and the subject. Model knows how to pose, photographer knows how to capture the image. Boom. Now we have
Right.
a whole society of people that know what they look like in front of the camera and are ostensibly amateur models.
I,
So
I dig it. I think it's great because when they come to me and they trust me to photograph them on their wedding day, they're looking at me knowing what they know, knowing how they look, when they photograph themselves and each other. They know, they're like, okay, I'm going to trust you to do this.
yeah.
And that makes my job so much easier because when I say, hey, I want you to get up on top of the picnic table and I want you to do, they're like, this is going to be cool.
Sure. Yeah. I
Yeah.
wonder, does that raise the bar though, Troy? Like
Oh, of
for,
course.
because before it could be, hey, I just bought a cool, expensive camera and put it on auto and go out there and snap pictures as long as the exposures were fine and I was reasonably decent with composition. People will say, wow, you're a great photographer. And now that everyone has the skill to do, especially of themselves, they know what sucks. They know when a bad picture of them has been taken. Now there's increased pressure on people like you that take photos of them for a living and are charging them to do better than what they could do with their iPhone, right?
Well, this might sound arrogant. It doesn't, I don't mean it to sound arrogant. If you're a professional and you know your skill level,
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't bother you. It shouldn't bother you because I know that my work is better than what the average person with a camera can do, right?
Yeah.
And all that's going to do for me is offset me from them because their level of photography, whatever that is for the average amateur trying to do what I'm doing, they're only gonna achieve so much. I have more skill, I have more training, I've self-taught, my training, the experience that I have, I'm going to create better than them. And what that does, it helps put me in a segment that my clients can recognize as a pro level photographer.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm super glad when we raise from the bottom, when everybody's getting better and challenging me, and And I'm like, holy crap, you know, that's a great shot. I wish I would have taken that.
Right.
Well, I'm going to go work harder now.
Mm-hmm.
So it lifts everybody up. You know, I love that. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. It makes professional photographers work for their cheddar, right?
Well,
And not anyone can masquerade as a professional photographer when the average consumer is, arguably, as competent as photographers were a couple of years ago.
Yes, yes, that is so true. That is no joke. And I think that it's important that not only our clients know that, but the photographers that are coming into this industry understand that as well, that you have to rise above. But once you do, it's not, I don't want to say it's easy. I was going to say it's easy, but once you do, your work stands out. It's obvious.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, we can all make pizza. We can all make a burger. We can all throw together a taco, but can we make that amazing pizza or taco? Right. I can't, you know, so that makes that have more value.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. It makes you, if you're an okay microwaver, right? And then you go into a 5-star restaurant and have a proper meal, proper steak prepared by someone who is trained in the discipline, and you sit down and you eat it, you're like, oh my God, this is delicious, right? Then you see the delta between the two.
Yeah. And even if you're a fairly good cook yourself, you still appreciate that even more now, right? Because now you know what it takes to make it. I used to get all these comments that, oh, well, you can just take that out in Photoshop, or, you know, don't worry about moving the chair. We'll take that out in Photoshop. And I'm like, dude, that's not as easy. But because people have access to Photoshop and they've played, they know it's not that easy now.
Yeah.
And so I've stopped hearing those comments. And I'm like, hey, guys, we're going to move over here because there's a pole coming out of your head. And they're like, okay, great. And they move. No more Photoshop comments because they know.
Especially if you have a line in your contract that says retouching will be charged at a rate of $900 an hour.
Yeah. I step in and I fix the hair, or I fix a little thing, and I'm like, man, that just saved me 20 minutes of Photoshop.
Yeah.
And they laugh because they get it, right? They play, they get it. So yeah, all of that applies to how we make better images, really.
I love it.
Learning how to do it. Yeah.
Troy Miller, thanks again for your insight in this
TWiP
Pro critique session. I love these critique sessions because even like when I did one with Renee, the last one, this part of the conversation is as good as the critique part of the conversation, right? So the people that are, it's almost like a trifecta, because the people that submitted the images for critique, hopefully they get something out of our comments, right? The people that are watching us critique others' images, hopefully they get something out that they can apply to their work. Right. And then this third part of the conversation where we just sort of talk, about about technique and philosophy, and psychology, philosophy, all this stuff. Then you also get something out of that. So I think this is fantastic. Troy, where people that are watching this, where would you like them to go to see some of these brides that you work on, or hire you, or see some of your pyrotechnic work?
Imageryconcepts.com is my website. Imagery Concepts on Instagram, and Spicy Jello on Instagram is my personal artwork stuff. So you can find everything there.
Fantastic. All right, man. Thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
You got it.
All right. See you later. This is TWiP.